everybody. Thanks so much for coming today. This is an amazing turnout, and I'm so excited that we're filling up this new space. So thank you all for coming. And I know a lot of you saw our guest today and were like, oh, I'm going. Like, I was so excited to meet Lee Mayer. It was 2014 when you founded your company, which is Havenly. How many of you have gone to her website? Okay, pretty much everybody. If you don't, you need to go into your car in the parking lot and look it up. But then you'll be late to work because you'll like get engrossed in it, as I have. I already have like a project. So it's so nice to meet you. Lee started this website which offers interior design help and accessible, affordable, access to some great designers. And over the years, you have grown this so well. You know what your customers want, you know your designers. But I have a friend of yours, another CEO in town, who I told I was meeting you today, Wendy Burkhart. And she goes, the thing about Lee that is so awesome, aside the fact that she's great with her business, is that she can go into a meeting with possible investors. And it could be a room full of guys, and she just says her what she has to say, and they listen. And she really garners respect. So I think we have a lot to learn from Lee Mayer today. So I'm going to hand the microphone over to you, and then I'll ask you a couple of questions as well. First of all, Lee, thank you for coming. I'm curious why you started Havenly. Because you had a job. Why?
Why? There are days when I'm like, I have no idea. By the way, if you ever start a company, you will too. Otherwise, if someone tells you otherwise, they're lying. I think, why was a little bit of why not, but I'll be terribly honest with you. I was never the girl that was going to be an entrepreneur. I think there was always like a hint of surprise amongst my family and friends when they were like, you are the one starting the company, not, anyway. And I think it's because I lack a little imagination. I'm very much I think historically I've been sort of a straight and narrow path kind of girl. So I did the things, then did the things, and then went to the job that got the next job, and I was sort of that person. But I'll be honest, it was the move to Denver.
Yeah.
So my background, for those of you guys that don't know, I'm very outspoken about this. Annoyingly so. I get a lot of booze for this, by the way. I'm a recovering New Yorker, by which I mean I'm
okay.
Yeah, I see some of you guys up there. I moved here kicking and screaming. I was not happy about this move. This was I don't even know what the middle of the country is. What's Denver? What's in Colorado? I'm not outdoorsy. What am I going to do with my heels? Sort of picturing this place.
You flip-flops on.
Yeah, so this morning I was like, should I wear heels? And I'm like, it's Colorado. So I moved out here, and the thing about moving out here, in particular 5 years ago, I think things have changed a little bit, is for women like me and men like me, there actually aren't that many jobs. So I went to a bunch of really fancy schools out east. I worked in sort of finance and consulting in firms that don't exist here. They exist in New York, LA, San Francisco, maybe Boston, maybe Chicago. And there weren't a lot of great jobs for young people that were sort of on the rise, so to speak. Denver is sort of like a gray-haired town, it is. It's oil and gas and telecom tech, and none of that appealed to me. And I moved here with a company. It was a company owned by a private equity fund that I done work for. And they were nice enough to offer me a job. That company then went public, and I was sort of bored. And as I was leaving, there was nothing else. And I'd had this idea rattling around in my brain, and it kind of came up again because I moved to Denver, and you move from New York, who's from New York, I had tiny furniture. Tables that folded down on the side, things that tucked under things. And then I moved to this 5-bedroom house in Denver, and I'm like, woo, dance party. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm an adult, I just moved into this house that I bought in 2012, which is a really good move. And I didn't have any way to furnish it. And I was working, a lot, and I felt like I needed it to look great. And no one was helping me because I'm not fancy and I didn't have a big enough budget for the interior designers in town. And so that's kind of how it happened. And I was like, I can spend 6 months trying to find the perfect job, or I can spend 6 months trying to figure out if this is something I want to do. Either way, I've spent 6 months pretty much hopefully doing something productive towards my career. And that's how I started, and it kind of took off.
Kinda.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it's been amazing, and there are moments where I hate it. If I was here yesterday, I had to pull an all-nighter for a variety of reasons. And yesterday morning, I was hating my job. So the secret is sometimes you start a company and you still hate your job. And that was sort of disappointing. But usually I really like it.
Yeah. You're in it, though. You're in it to win it.
I'm in it.
What is the proudest thing about what you've done since 2014? What are you most proud of with Havenly?
So there are two things that sort of get me up in the morning, and they both sound cheesy, and like you're gonna hear me say this, and you're gonna be like, no, there's something else. She doesn't really care, but it's actually true. Like I'm actually surprised at how cheesy I am about some of the stuff. So the first is the team. I have an incredible team. It is like amazing, and sometimes when I'm traveling, I'm sort of on the road this week. And I look at Slack and I look at these like conversations that are happening and the business is kind of going on without me and people care and I don't have to be there for them to care and they like each other and they seem to like me okay. And it's amazing. Like it's like this amazing feeling. Like there are however many jobs that didn't exist that we created and they're being filled by people that love their job for the most part. I'm sure they hate it too sometimes. And that's pretty cool. And the second is actually like the customer feedback that we get. Sometimes it's bad. Yesterday I got an email, this is why like I really hate my life yesterday. Yesterday I got an email from an old friend who'd used Havenly and had a bad experience. And like that's hard. And then we turned it around for her and I got an email this morning and she was like, thank you so much, you've got a great team, thank you for doing this. I was really cranky yesterday, I apologize for the email. And those moments where I see a tweet or someone follows me around the airport, which just happened, or I meet people that have gone to the site and used the service, it's pretty cool. Like I'm building something I love consumer businesses because they're so tangible, like the benefit, and sometimes when you get it wrong, it's so visible, it's so in alignment, like you have to do the right thing for the customer for the business to survive. But seeing like the human face of it and like people like it, it's like, oh my gosh, they like me, they really, really like me. But it's really cool. It's like a really cool thing.
Explain how Havenly works if people here don't know.
Yeah, so it's a really simple concept. So the idea is we match you up with an interior designer and we only charge you a flat, like sort of a low flat fee to do it. And on the back end, what we do is we strip out the costs for the interior designer, we're trying to service you by sort of using technology to help them design your home. So you work with them to design your home all online, and it's done through photos, phone calls, an online messaging platform. And then at the end, you can actually buy everything across 400 stores directly through us. And so it's kind of like if you guys have used like a Stitch Fix or a Trunk Club, it's sort of that model, but for home design. So it's been really fun.
Oh my God, my basement. I'm getting rid of old dress-up clothes, getting them to you, and then doing this. Now, you said, were you artsy though? I mean, you said no. Have you become, like, do you walk in here and be like, ooh, cool light fixture?
Yeah, so the side effect of my job is like, I can identify where any, like, it's actually like a game we play sometimes, like I can identify where like a lot of furniture pieces came from.
Oh, you can.
And like the weird part is I used to love looking at home pictures before, and now I like kind of don't like
you
it.
pick them apart, you dissect them.
Yeah, it's like work. Like it's like, so when I go home now, I never used to be sort of like really a big celebrity gossip person, but I've switched from home magazines to like Us Weekly. I've been missing a lot over the years, apparently.
So I'm curious for a lot of, when you were starting out, what kind of obstacles did you face, and what do you still face as a small business owner or being a woman business owner?
Yeah. I think that the thing that sometimes people forget in this crazy like startup culture world is we look at the news and we look at TechCrunch or even these days like the New York Times or Wall Street Journal, and you think that going from zero to Uber is like this easy straight line path. And in fact, in Uber's case, it actually kind of was, but not for Travis Kalanick, who some of you guys may have opinions on. But the crazy part about Travis is this is like his fourth startup. Like, he's had a failure, 2 kind of middling successes, and Uber. And this is like the greatest startup story in the world right now. And I think that like the sheer amount of determination, just like creating something from thin air. Like, none of this existed. 10 years ago, not only my company, but most of the companies that you're thinking about from a startup perspective did not exist. These things were created from thin air on the backs of incredible determination. And I think determination sounds really great, but it's fucking hard. I'm just putting it out there, like, literally, like I can tell you what I gave up, but it's not about that. It's like just the day in and day out of being like, I am climbing up a really steep hill, kind of alone. It's not like I'm like famous. I don't come from tons and tons of money. I don't have the backing of a large corporation. I am doing this to a certain extent. Myself and my co-founders are doing it alone. And that is like, if anyone knows like the myth of Sisyphus, it can feel like that. I'm just like carrying this boulder and it keeps rolling down. But you start to realize, and the crazy part is, like now that I've had the benefit of years, like 3. So experienced, guys. But I can look back on the last few years and be like, well, actually, like I moved, every time I moved the boulder up and it came back down, I moved it up just a little bit. And sort of inch by inch, step by step, and day by day, week by week, you end up moving forward. And I think what's really important for me personally, but I sort of tell my co-founders and co-workers this, is take stock of the last month or the last year, because it really gives you an appreciation of the fact that this isn't just an unending, never-ending, terrible thing. It's kind of like this place where I feel like me as a person, me as a leader, the team collectively, the team individually, the product, how we react to customers, all of that has progressed so much over the last 3 years. And I think that on days like yesterday when I have a tough day and I'm on zero sleep and I'm in LA and like my Uber doesn't show up and I have to get a Lyft and then like I'm late to the meeting and like whatever. On those days, if you come back home and you take stock of it, it sort of makes it easier. But don't let anyone tell you this isn't hard. It is hard. It's also really rewarding. But just, again, you're magicking something out of thin air. So that takes work.
Yeah. After your day yesterday, then you're allowed to wear flip-flops most likely, right?
Yeah, a huge glass of wine.
Yeah, there you go. You're in the tech sector, and there are a lot of men and a lot of men investors.
Yeah.
How, if our friend Wendy said, you go in there and, with your lift or however you get there, whatever's going on, and you focus and you deliver and people listen to you. How did you get there? Do you have any advice for, in this world where women are trying to get money for their businesses with investors who are mostly men, how do you crack in there?
Yeah, so I have like a flippant answer and a real answer. My flippant answer is men are a little easy. And actually, like I hate to say this, but it's one of the more interesting things about men that I've realized, and this is like a total generalization, I apologize for saying this, and it's a little flippant, but they react to confidence. You know why? Because that's what they react to. I have no idea why. I think it comes from like football fields or, I don't know, balls. Sorry, that was new. But like it's one of the truisms in my life that I've like walked into a room and when I feel the least confident is when I act the most confident. And I don't know why that's true for me. Hopefully it becomes true for you because it really works. Typically over time you have to back it up with something, but it's actually like an incredible thing. I can go into a room and be like, the sky is purple, and people will be like, And I can go in and I can say, well, 2 + 2 is kind of like 4, and folks will be like, no, it's 5. And it's like this interesting thing that I've never quite understood, but I've been lucky enough to sort of have that happen naturally to me. For those of you that are walking into rooms with men who control funding, resources, your future, I highly recommend that you start to figure out how to do that in your own way. And everyone has their own, and every woman and man has their own way of sort of acting confident, but figure out what's natural on you and make it happen. It's like a really great piece of advice that was actually given to me, but I think has served me well in life. The second thing, and the more real answer about this, by the way, is men are people too. And sometimes when we're standing in a room as women, we forget that men are incredible people. I have, in fact, 100% of my biggest supporters in my professional career have been men. And I think they've been supporters of me as a woman, they've been supporters of me personally, they've been incredibly kind and thoughtful and introspective about how they react to women in the workplace. And I just want to encourage you to remember that sometimes when you're sitting in a room with 3 people that are investors and you're a woman, you're not a woman. You're an entrepreneur and you're sitting across from 3 investors. And going in there will do 2 things. First, it'll hopefully provide you with a little bit of confidence coming in, so you're not sort of sitting there on the back foot to begin with. But second, it reminds us that like we can be on the other side too, right? Like, I mean, it's not like there have to be 3 white men in those seats. There can be a woman and 2 white men in those seats. Sorry. Sort of the truth of the matter is. But also to like reach out to men. Because men actually still control most of the world. And if we're not doing that, if we're not building those bridges to that community, the broader business community, most of which is dominated by men, we're sort of doing ourselves a disservice. So form relationships with women, there's nothing wrong with that. Speak out against things that are wrong, do all those things. But, you know, make sure you find the man in your life that's going to champion you. Whether it's your partner, or your business partner, or your boss. Find someone like that, regardless of gender, and they're human. They are, sometimes you forget it.
So I'm just curious too, you know, a lot of these meetings we talk about mentoring, and I haven't heard you talk about a mentor, but in starting your business, you must have had a lot of insight. You said you have a great board and great supporters, but what does mentoring look like for you in your business, Havenly?
That's a really good question. I think I'm one of those people that have like a lot of people sort of around me, but no single person. So I'm a bit of a pain in the ass for those of you guys who don't know me. I'm a little like, I'm just a pain in the ass. Like, it's really hard to mentor me. And so for the people that stick around and try, I have an incredible amount of respect. And the reason it's hard to mentor me is I just like have a lot of pushback. Like, I just have a lot of questions. And it comes off as, you know, pushing back, I suppose. But I genuinely am curious about other people's experiences and sort of what they think. But before I get to that point, I'm actually a little shy and uncomfortable. I'm afraid that if you get too close to me, and this is just like a vulnerability of mine, I don't know if some of you share it, I'm afraid that if you get too close to me, or I ask you too many questions, or I admit that I don't know something, that you will think less of me. And overcoming that sort of kind of early inclination is something that I work really hard at now. But over the course of my life has actually probably distanced me and provided a sort of a weird blocker between me and some people that would be mentors to me. And that's like a real regret for me, and I say this now because I actually see it a lot among some of the women that work for me. We have a majority female staff, by the way. And I see it sometimes among some of the women that work for me. They don't want to come to me until it's perfect. They don't want to like sit down and just dive in with me. They want to make sure, you know, they like prepare and present. And I'm just like sort of sad about it because I see it in them and I know I saw it in me. And I think and the truth of the matter is I'm not past it. Like I still feel that way. Like I still, you know, like I don't know what it is. I wish I didn't have it. Regardless. So when it comes to mentorship, the people that ultimately end up getting there, I find to be incredibly valuable to me because there's so few of them that get there with me because I'm so like weird and uncomfortable. So get to the point where it's like, I really can ask you a question. I'm really afraid. I really can't sleep. I don't know if we're gonna make it past next year. What's gonna happen if we don't grow? Those questions, when you can go to some of them, is like just amazing. By the way, like having someone else with you in that. And so my advice, I suppose, if I have it, is find those people, and if you're someone that like gets there really quickly, that's awesome. If you're not, work on it, because having that person is just a lifeline, regardless of what you do in life, I think. I think for me, like one of the things that I wish I could champion a little bit more, it's one of those things where I'm like, man, if I had time, I really would like to. And then like the realization is the first part of the statement is not going to be true for a while. But I'd love to start thinking about like how you can actually create a mentorship program that really works. Like I've never seen a formal mentorship program really work before. oftentimes, does anyone else, I mean, I feel like my mentors are never through those. And certainly the mentoring relationships that I'm fortunate enough to have, in other words, where I sort of act as a mentor, which is very strange, never come through the formal programs. It's always a personal connection. And I think part of the reason is, first of all, formal programs can be a little stiff and not allow for kind of, I think, the organic connection that needs to happen to get past that initial discomfort. Like, I'm asking you for help, you're asking me for help, what's gonna happen? And I think maybe that's a part of it. But I'd love to think about it because I think women don't have enough mentors. I think they have too few, by the way, I just alluded to this, male mentors, which I still find important because, again, men control the world, and we're living in it. And I hate that, but it's the truth. And I think women also don't do a good enough job, and I suspect, again, talking to a lot of women, they have the issue that I do. We don't have a good enough job reaching out and sort of aggressively finding someone and being aggressively honest with them, right? Like, so being like, warts and all, I am afraid because I don't know this. And I think that is something I'd love to like see if someone's been able to comment. I don't know if anyone knows of anything, but it's like a personal interest of mine. In our organization, we haven't done anything formal. I found that like, because we have so many women in the organization, they tend to start to find their own way, but I think I might be a little too lackadaisical about it. So we'll be thinking about it, certainly. But any ideas anyone has for a broader program, I'm sort of all ears. And while I will not implement them, I can probably find someone who will. So I'm good at convincing people.
Do you want to see if there are any questions in the audience?
Yeah,
You said,
I'd like to take a couple.
can we do some questions?
Yeah,
You're like,
absolutely.
okay.
Just kind of shout it out, and then Kyle can repeat it if we have
Okay.
a hard time hearing.
Anybody? Oh, there you go.
Are you working with your sister?
Yeah, so I started the company with Emily, my little sister. She's 6 years older, or 6 years younger.
Is she here?
My God, no, she's not here. So the truth was, Emily hated Denver. And she really did not like it. And I can kind of see why. I didn't love it at the beginning either. And so she actually moved back to New York. And when she moved back east, we realized that wasn't the right thing to do for the company. She also, and you'll find this, people have different skill sets like over time. And my sister's like your quintessential startup girl. The second it started to get into like more process and leadership and like a lot more sort of structured, and we're not very structured, by the way. She just like chafes against any of it. She was like, yeah, peace, like this isn't awesome. So she's still obviously like a great brand ambassador. She obviously has her equity. She will always be a co-founder, and she will always be my sister, for better or for worse. But she is not actively with the company.
I was just wondering how you decided to start up with your sister in the beginning, and how it went working together with your sister.
Yeah. So you know, frankly, it's such an easy decision to work with a sibling to some degree because you kind of know the worst of it. Like I really do. I can point out all of her flaws, and she can point out all of mine. I guarantee you, spend 5 minutes with me, and I will. I also know, you know, one of the funny things is it actually gave me a new appreciation for her. She's my baby sister. So I was 6 when she was born. You can imagine that when I was 12, and then when I was in high school, I wasn't her biggest fan. Yeah, to say the least. I'm like, who are you? Why are you following me around? This annoying mom, like, you know. That was like sort of the relationship we had. And then to see someone like that again in sort of this profession, with this professional lens, and like being really capable and very smart and, you know, sort of carrying her load, I think was like a revelation to me. I mean, I remember I had these moments where I'm like, who are you? You know, what have you done with my like Gilmore Girls living? Anyway, so it was I thought it was great, and I think you know, it definitely provided us a lot of shorthand. Like one of the things about starting a business is you're like just making tons and tons of really random decisions. And you know, we didn't have to check in with each other that often. In some ways, we got to move a little bit faster because it was just like this natural shorthand between us. The toughest part, actually, to be honest, about starting a business with them was we're really similar. And actually, that isn't a good thing when you're starting, in particular, a consumer business, but any sort of business, I think, because you need people to A, take different roles, and B, you kind of need someone to be your devil's advocate. And Emily wasn't going to be that for me. First of all, the power dynamic was weird. I've always been the older sister, and I was a CEO, so like it was just like she just, we sort of fell into this role. But we just were really similar, and we view the world in a lot of the same kind of weird ways. And so we actually brought on a third co-founder a little later on. She's actually still with the business, Jessie, my COO, who is out there holding the fort so that I can be here with you today. And Jessie and I, what's great is we share a common language, but she views the world really differently. So I'm like your classic sort of visionary, big picture. I'm typically known for walking into meetings, like blowing up the meeting and then walking out. And then Jessie's like sort of behind me getting it all done. And I think that that's important when you think about like partners and co-founders, like working with a sibling or working with a spouse or working with like a really close friend. There's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. I think it works really well. But just like know that sometimes the reason you're really good friends or you're married or you have a relationship with your sibling is because you're a little too in the same focus, and that can get just a little bit hard at times.
Real quick here, and then I know I'm a guy, but I'm going to answer this anyway. I was just at our North Carolina convention in Greensboro. Lauren Reitinger spent an entire hour about your business. So it's good to have you partnered with us.
Yeah.
We're also expanding that business in the area, so we're going to be promoting the heck out of your business through the shop.com. You know what I'm talking about?
Of course.
You decorated her home.
Yeah. Lauren has been an incredible support of us. It's funny. That's kind of the thing that like has been so astounding to me is how people like Lauren. Actually, we didn't reach out to her. She found us somehow, I believe. And we just decorated her home as a client. And then we don't have a formal real relationship there. I mean, this was just our designer Shelby made her super happy, and she was sort of like, we have to do business. And it was like, wow, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this happened the other day. We had a client, and it's one of those things too where, as a CEO, I'm like, oh shit, I've got these people using my platform, and I haven't like checked on that. You always want to make sure your VIP clients are marked VIP, but they never are. They come in, and I just got a LinkedIn message a month ago. I woke up one morning, and it was Carla Hassan, who's the CMO now of Toys R Us. She used to run all global beverages for PepsiCo. And it's a hilarious message. She's like, Lee, I'm so sorry to bother you. I'm sure you're busy. And I'm like, I'm not that busy. Between you and I, you're more busy. And she's like, but I use Heavenly and I love it and we want to partner. And I'm like, please send me these emails once every day. Literally. I'm like, definitely not to. And I think that's like what, when you were talking about what's amazing, it's like, wow, like that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Like little old me, and that definitely has its own. So I'm glad
you
guys.
25,000 people.
Yeah, no, I know we got a great response.
200,000 worldwide.
Yeah, no, we got a great response.
And we do have videos of you, so we're going to be promoting you through all of us, through our Facebook account.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. That's great to hear.
How did you choose your advisory board?
We never really had a really formal advisory board. Now we have a board of directors, which is sort of something you take on. I advise you to take it on as late as you have to, but don't tell myself that. I'm just kidding. Actually, I got really lucky with my board. I have heard some nightmare stories there. So from an advisor standpoint, I kind of, so I probably did it wrong. I have trouble saying no to people. And when you start a company and people think that you're onto something, they start to come and they start to say, like, he'll advise you for equity. Say no. Just say no to that. Like, don't do it. There are people that have equity in my company that I literally have spoken to once on the phone. And they have more equity in my company than some of my like really hardworking, long tenured employees. That's what's crazy about it. Just don't do it. It's something like I regret to this day. That being said, the people that actually ended up being real advisors, and some of them have equity, some of them don't, some of it's like informal, were people that I found myself going to again and again. And sometimes like I think one of the
more interesting things is like, don't think that just because someone's further along than you that they'll know anything about what you're doing, or vice versa. If someone's less far along than you, that they won't be a great sounding board for you. And I think one of the more interesting cases is like, I actually have someone who I called advisor. I actually never gave him equity. Although I probably should have in retrospect. But too late now. But he, when I first met him, his company was certainly further along than mine. Then went through sort of reduction in force and like sort of a pivot, and I think now would arguably be considered sort of an early stage company. But he's still an advisor of mine. I go to him with a lot of questions. He provides a lot of feedback. For a while, we were doing Friday morning calls. If any of you guys know Yoav from the radio Simple Energy, he's who I'm talking about. It was one of those things. It's developed into a friendship, obviously, but like it's one of those things where I really enjoyed his perspective. It was really different from mine. If any of you know Yoav, he's like a super aggressive guy, and I'm not. I mean, I'm fairly aggressive, but he just has like a really interesting way of looking at things, and I really appreciated that. Like again, for me, it's all about figuring out different perspectives. And I just liked it. Like, I liked having that voice. I liked that it created the safe space. When someone's out, like, really aggressive, by the way, it's really fun. They're really aggressive, and they're standing out here. It gives you this latitude to be like, well, I'm better than that guy. Not that you're bad. Sorry, yo. But, like, it does give you, like, this latitude to sort of find, like, this, if this person would be over here and this person would be over here, I have this wide of a band to play in, which gives you a lot of freedom. I think it's kind of nice. So I recommend like going with your gut a little bit. From a very tactical perspective, if someone comes to you and says, I want to be your advisor, and before giving you a word of advice, asks you for something in return, they're not going to be good. I guarantee you. Someone that asks about something that's that transactional is never going to understand what you're doing.
So we met 3 years ago virtually, and I'm really curious, what maybe somebody told you when you were in the accelerator first starting your business that you didn't believe at the time, because I know that you were quite headstrong and still are, and thought, no, that's never going to happen, or I don't think that that's a good approach to take, that has turned out to be something that you wish you did, or the opposite, something that was sort of advised to you or told that you thought maybe you should follow 3 years ago that you didn't and you wish you did, something along those lines?
Yeah, there have been a couple. So actually, the equity advice that I just gave you, none of you will take. And the reason you won't take it is because you're going to feel like I did, which is like, well, beggars and choosers. People want to give me money. People want to give me advice. At that time I had, it's like time or money. I had far more time than I did money. Now, and certainly more equity than I did money, and it was worth zero. So like everyone was like, people gave me this advice. They're like, why are you giving this person? And I'm like, well, he's willing to give me $5,000. We've raised $14 fucking million. Like, that matters not at all. But that guy's still fucking calling me, and being a pain in my ass. Anyway, he knows who he is. Tweet at, no, just kidding. So, I actually, like, and by the way, all of you, particularly first-time entrepreneurs, like, all of you will make this mistake. It's just, like, it's not just even, some of it, I think, by the way, is a little bit of, like, this maybe female, like, oh my gosh, like, what a big deal, he's trying to give me money. Some of it's just, you don't know. And the fact of the matter is, when you're giving away, like, a percent of your company, 1% of zero, my math isn't great, but 1% of zero is still zero, so you're not thinking about it. 1% of 50 million is quite a bit of money. So that's something you don't look ahead to that, and I wish I had, to be honest. I think I've taken a lot of pieces of advice that I think have turned out to not be great. I've taken a lot of advice that has turned out to be great. Everyone's willing to offer their opinion in this world. I am very willing to offer my opinion, by the way. I'll do it for free when you take equity. But, people are always willing to do it. I think the best advice that I can give you on that is it's your business. No one will know it better than you, and no one will be more invested in it than you and your partners. So appreciate that. It's yours. Take control of that. That's okay. Like, own it. Sometimes you'll fuck up and it won't go anywhere and it'll be your fault, but it's your fault. It won't be like the guy that you met for 5 minutes who had all of the advice in the world to give you. And it turns out actually also in this market in Denver, you don't have a ton of like very sophisticated like startup folks. And that I think was actually a realization for me. Not a lot of people here have done it. There are actually very few people here that have done it. And it took a little bit of time for me to realize like someone coming at me with like advice that was 10 years old wasn't really relevant today. And it was okay to be like, hey, thanks for that, I appreciate your feedback. But really, like, you know nothing about the way the world works in my world right now. And the reason I know it is because I live it 24 hours a day, and you don't, and that's okay, and I'm complaining for it. It's just the way it is. And so, like, I think there is a little bit of, like, holding true to your anchor. And some of that, by the way, is also having a really great partner, so co-founder, who's able to be like, okay, no, I get you. Because, like, you know, you get some whiplash, I heard from so-and-so that we should be doing X, and you come back, and that person's like, okay, no, we've always had this strategy, we're gonna stick with the strategy, we're gonna go. And so it's important to have a little bit of an anchor, too.